What's going on, everyone? I hope you're having an awesome day so far, and welcome back to another episode of Chuck's Customs. Now, I know what you're probably already thinking. Chuck, you look terrible. Well, I feel terrible, but that's just because I've been very, very, very busy. Hence why I haven't uploaded in over a year at this point. But over the past year, as you may or may not already know, I ended up selling my house and moving to Tennessee. I've been living in a little tiny Winnebago for the last year. See? That one. Right there. I've been building a house. That one. Right there. Please don't judge. It's far from finished. And this garage, giant shed thing. And I've been working a full-time job, which takes up pretty much all of my time. But now the time has finally come that we're finally getting back into things. And obviously, like most of my videos, the subject of today's video is Bessie here. So, let's talk about it. Don't let the copious amounts of weeds fool you, okay? They're just being dramatic. Bessie's only been parked in this spot for like 2 months or so. Before she was parked here, she was parked right over there. But the reason she's still parked is because I took on a project that I was not knowledgeably equipped. I didn't know what I was doing. Like, I thought I knew what I was doing because I watched some YouTube videos, but at the end of the day, like, when it comes down to actually applying the science, I didn't quite get it right. And I built probably the most unsafe steering system that I could have ever conjured up. To make a long story short, I finally got the drive shafts made up, put them in the truck, and tried to test drive her. And I realized that I needed sway bars because it felt like I was trying to drive a little tiny boat in an ocean full of big waves. So I said, okay, we need to stabilize this thing a little bit. So I put in sway bars. Then I tried to test drive it again. I don't know if my axles aren't lined up perfectly, or if it's just got a wild amount of torque steer, or if that steering system is just that screwed up, which it probably is. But when you're driving down the road, you get through first and second gear, no problem. The moment you hit third gear, that's when that gearbox actually starts to pick up some speed. You ease into the throttle, and it steers so hard to the left. Steering wheel's still straight in your hand, but the truck just goes left. Like you're gonna cross over the other lane and into the ditch. So naturally, that's a horrifying feeling. So you steer right to counter. Now you're going straight, kind of. You let off the throttle, and now you're steering right. It's horrifying. Just not a fun experience to drive. It's to a point now where when I try to fix something, it either doesn't actually fix anything or it just reveals another problem. So to summarize, if you have no experience building a 4-link suspension setup, don't go all in the way I did, because you'll probably be disappointed when you can't drive your truck at the end. That's my story, at least. Maybe it'll be different for you, but don't use my videos for reference, because this is what it gets you. It gets you a parked truck with weeds and vines growing up into it every single day. And now you have to start the project basically over, which is what we're going to talk about next. So let me show you what I got. Let me introduce you to Bessie's new frame. That's right, we're switching over to a new frame that is already set up for leaf springs, which is the way God intended. Now, I know some of you might ask, Chuck, why don't you just put leaf springs on Bessie and save yourself a whole bunch of time? Well, Bessie is a half-ton frame. 2-wheel drive. This is a 3/4 ton frame that was originally intended for 4-wheel. It's already got the hangers mounted exactly where they need to be. There's no guesswork. There's no cutting and trying to figure out exactly what I need to do involved with this project. We're going to box it to make it a little more sturdy, just like we did with Bessie's frame. And I've already got a 6-inch rough country lift kit already been delivered. Like, it's ready to bolt on. I just want to get the frame a little more cleaned up and boxed before I do any of that. And then from there, it's just a matter of moving the engine over to this frame, moving the cab over to this frame, maybe moving the flatbed over to this frame. I don't know, I might want to build a nicer one. well, probably for now, we'll just move the bed over to this frame. We can always build a nicer one in the future. On top of that, if you don't remember, I welded everything to Bessie's frame. All of the link hangers, the engine cross member, the engine mounts, the shock towers that go up alongside the engine, everything's welded to that frame. So in order to work around all that, I would have to cut it all off. And I'm comfortable welding stuff to a frame, but I'm not comfortable with that frame after I've cut stuff off of it. That's just a problem waiting to happen. There's a few other reasons too, like oil pan placement and stuff like that, but that's not what this episode's about. For this episode, we're gonna clean that frame up, get it boxed, and get that lift kit installed. So let's get to it. Well, I busted my knuckles a couple times off camera, but that's okay. As you can see right there, there's a pile of stuff that's kind of blending into the terrain of my yard that wasn't there before because it was on the frame, but now it's not. So now it's there. So I would say we're making good progress. Now the sun's kind of starting to go down and I don't really have any light out here, so tomorrow I'll get started on taking an angle grinder to this puppy, cleaning up the metal, and getting it ready to box. Well, it'll be tomorrow for me, but for you guys it'll be a few seconds, so here it is. Alrighty, that didn't take too terribly long to do. Got the edges of the frame all cleaned up and ready to weld. So in case you're wondering what kind of material I'm using, it's just this 1/8 inch by 6 inch flat bar. Now when I boxed Bessie's frame, I ended up going to the metal supplier and bought a 4x8 1/8 inch sheet of steel, and I just had them shear it down into 6 inch strips. But this time I just got the 6 inch flat bar, save time, money, good to go. I'm kind of bummed out because my job site compressor will not start, so I can't use the plasma cutter, and my other compressor isn't even hooked up yet because I haven't even run electricity to the garage yet. Fortunately though, the material is already pretty close to the size it needs to be, so an angle grinder with a cutoff wheel is going to work just fine. Let's get to it. Alrighty, y'all. That's a good apple. Damn. Alrighty, y'all. Well, it looks like the frame is all completely boxed up. Any issues with the frame have been addressed. There's only a few spots, like right in there, that I didn't really get to boxing because I'm really not worried about that area for strength. The boxing comes all the way up to where the front there of the rear leaf springs are, and that's where all your torque is kind of going to transfer from anyway. But I still went ahead and put that little guy in there on each side just to give it a little bit more stiffness. So now, damn it. So that means now it's time to paint. But before we get to that, I just want to touch one little subject. A lot of people in my previous videos have been commenting saying you shouldn't weld on the frame. Welding on the frame is a big no-no. Welding on it weakens the frame, yada, yada, yada. Let me just say that hot rodders have been doing this stuff since like the 50s and 60s with no issue. On top of that, the welding that I'm doing is strengthening the frame. And yeah, maybe the heat's doing a little bit of something, but not enough to cause any kind of issues. On top of that, I have proof in Bessie right there, because the first thing I did was I boxed her frame, I welded all over it, and I haven't had a single issue. So I've been putting all sorts of torque from that Cummins through it. I've been doing burnouts. I've been doing speed runs, everything that I could do to that truck before it became immobile. No issue, guys. So not to worry. I'm confident in what I've done. And now we can move on to paint. Well, would you look at that? Now we have a much sturdier and slightly better looking frame. And my fingers will be stained for the foreseeable future, but that's all right. But with this finally being done, I think the best way to end this episode would be to throw the new lift springs on it, see how she looks. Alrighty guys, I'd say that this is a pretty good place to stop for now. Did a lot more talking in this video than actual work, but I think this gives us a really great foundation to go off of for the next video when we start swapping everything over from Bessie onto this new frame. So with that being said, if you liked what you saw, go ahead and hit that like button. If you didn't like what you saw or you have concerns or comments, let me know in the comments section because I'd love to hear from you guys. And as always, if you want to see what we're getting into in the next episode, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss it. So, thank you again so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you next time on another episode of Chuck's Customs.